I have over 300,000 children. Well, I do. We all do. I have children of every race and children that speak different languages, and I have children with special needs, and I have children with amazing gifts. Frankly, these children are our responsibility. When I was named Commissioner of Education, I thought, oh my goodness, this job is way too big and so daunting. I thought, certainly, I'll have this epiphany of where I need to go and get this job accomplished. I'm a proud Nebraskan, but I'm especially proud to be the Commissioner of Education in this great state. To be cliche, there is no place like Nebraska. We understand common sense. Nebraska sometimes is perceived by those outside of this place as perhaps flyover country or something that really doesn't have anything to offer. But Nebraska, because it's my home, I know it's a place of significant historical importance, both nationally, across the world even. And frankly, even though Nebraska was once our country's frontier, where sometimes people traveled through here on their place to somewhere else, those who traveled through here on occasion left us with nuggets of wisdom, and those who decided to stay here are extremely special. Our reality is that we have this opportunity in Nebraska to reflect on where we've been. I want to tell you just a little bit of a story. In 1964, December 30th, 1964, Martin Luther King Jr. spoke at Pershing Auditorium. He spoke there just 6 months after the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. You saw Selma. The reality is it's only a few months before the 1965 passage of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And ultimately, these are landmarks in civil rights law for the country. Now, when Dr. King was here, he spoke in part these words. One of the great liabilities of history is that all too many people find themselves standing amid a great period of social change, and yet they fail to achieve the new attitudes, the new thought patterns, the new mental outlooks that the new situation demands. Nebraska has always been about the future, the long view of things. You know, frankly, we're in that position where we have that independent streak, but we're not backwards. We're not backwards at all. Instead, we have a tendency to want to do things the right way, sometimes methodically, and ensure that we move forward to get what's best for our next generations. In the 1950s, Nebraska actually passed a special education system 2.5 decades before it was required by the federal government with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. 2.5 decades before. When we're left to our own devices, we can think that far ahead. We've always cared about balancing the responsibilities of state and federal. We always have to constantly remind ourselves that we do not adopt things in a cookie-cutter approach from other places just because certain people arrive in the state of Nebraska. No applause on that one. Our education system is one of the most intentionally local systems in the country and perhaps the world. We've struggled for generations to really keep it that way, to make it our system. We don't ignore the responsibility to find our path to improve. Increasingly, that looks like the right decision in modern times. We didn't jump on that bandwagon for Common Core standards. Why? When all these other states did it, why didn't we do that? Because we refused to abdicate our right to set the expectations for our students in our classrooms on a daily basis. That's absolutely critical to our mission. We understand that making decisions at the closest level to the student makes all of the difference. And when we allow that to happen, and we allow that to happen with people that care about them at that closest level, that makes a significant difference to our students. We care about equity and access, and that's our job at the Department of Education to be able to accomplish that. For education reform, it should be clear that the moral imperative focuses on raising the bar and closing the gap in student learning and achievement for all children, regardless of background. If we know we have achievement gaps, we have to do everything that we can. We have to lock arm in arm to actually help students, parents, families, and schools close those achievement gaps. However, it can't be done or accomplished in schools alone. It takes all of us. It takes communities and smart investment by the state of Nebraska to make that difference. This is really true in our efforts in education right now across the state of Nebraska. We're working very hard, and I feel a significant sense of urgency to make sure that we're closing gaps for all of our students, regardless of their background. That's our moral imperative. But as we examine the data, and you can see here, our African American students and our Native American students and many others deserve better. We have to continue to examine that data, look at that importance of that moral imperative, and move our future populations forward. Our future populations, by the way, won't look like they do today. In the future, we'll have students from varying backgrounds, and that will continue to be nearly our majority of our students that we serve in our schools. We're very lucky on many counts as well. We have a graduation percentage that is second in the nation to Iowa, and that bugs me. We have a college-going rate near the top of the nation. We do extremely well on standardized test scores and other things. So we do many things well. Frankly, we're the envy of a lot of other states. I've often said, though, we can't simply adopt solutions to other people's problems. We have problems of our own. We should come up with those solutions that are going to make a difference for our problems. We should learn from others, and we certainly do. But when we take on the challenges ourselves and own the system that we are responsible for creating and improving, we can make a difference. We can't waste time on other people's failed ideas about what education reform happens to be. We actually have to look at what works here in Nebraska. And frankly, I've had this opportunity to travel around the state and see a lot of different experiences in our schools. Over the past 2 years, and I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done in Nebraska to create a new accountability system that we call Accountability for Our Quality Education System Today and Tomorrow, AQUEST. The state board, and I know I got 2 members, one of them was my fan anyway, 2 members that are here. The reality for us is we build that system, that we're thoughtful about what this next generation of accountability is. That not only is accountability something that we are doing as a policy, but it's something that we're owning as a responsibility. That's frankly why I'm so proud of that particular work. We have to continue to pay attention. We have schools that in rural places with declining enrollment that deserve attention. We have our Native American schools that deserve our attention and our investment. We have urban schools, and we have populations of students of racial and ethnic minorities, and we have shifting populations of students who don't speak English as their first language. It's our responsibility to be able to move that forward. If we do that, we can have a world-class system that builds on Nebraska's history of optimism and direction for our future. I've been through the state in a lot of different places, and I got to tell you just one little story. I can tell you that it's absolutely critical that we pay attention to what's happening in our schools. And one time, Dr. Friesen's over here, I can see, one time she and I walked into Star Elementary in Grand Island schools. And we walked in, and we had this chance ultimately to visit a school, 245 students, 17 different languages spoken. And we walked into Star Elementary, and there were interpreters there, not for students, but for the parents, so the parents could be engaged. We walked into the principal's office, and the principal's a bit nervous that I'm in the building. And he flips his monitor around and shows me how he's tracking the data on every single one of his students to say, I know where they are today and what they need today. We walk into classrooms, and teachers have their instructional targets on the wall, and the students are absolutely engaged in that learning. It was amazing. And then we walked back out of that place, and I thought, that's one of the best schools I've walked into in my life. And then I realized that's one of our needs improvement schools. Right? They are doing many of the right things that we would expect that they be doing on a daily basis in that school. Now, in addition to my 300,000 children, my wife and I have 5 children, and they deserve to grow up in a world, in a state, where every student around them has every opportunity, every person around them has every opportunity to be successful. That's all of our job, and we're going to have to participate in that success. Now, Dr. King in 1964 went on to say these words, "So many people fail to remain awake through great revolution. So I call upon you tonight, not to be spectators on the sideline, not to be individuals who are looking on, to be involved participants in this great struggle to make our nation a greater nation. To end all of the evils of racial injustice, poverty, the evil of war, we will all be involved participants. We will be able to speed up that day." Wow. Wow. We have to be involved participants. We ultimately can't make our nation a greater nation without all of us being involved. I call on you to help me speed up that day. I call on you to help me speed up that day that Dr. King's dream be realized. I call on you to support the students and the teachers and the communities to support one another. I call on all of us to collectively be better patrons and partners in our efforts to improve opportunities for our students. I ask you not to dwell on what is, but instead what could be. Let us be the state that others compare themselves to. Let us be the state that lives up to our moral imperative to support education to make our nation a greater nation. We must get used to always needing to be better. Let us not strive for settling, but instead settle for striving. This is common sense for the common good. There is no place like Nebraska. I am proud to have this particular role. I call on you to help me make that dream a reality.